This guitar used to be the go-to recommendation for a lot of beginner guitar players, but that has all changed. The Yamaha Pacifica is no longer a beginner's electric guitar. And in this video, we're going to find out why. We're going to be checking out the Yamaha Pacifica Standard Plus. So the Pacifica line of guitars from Yamaha originated in the 1990s. Now, we best know the Pacifica as being a beginner's guitar with the Pacifica 112. This is really where it became a household name in the guitar world. And many of you guys watching this video may even have had a Pacifica 112 as your very first guitar. It's actually a guitar that Yamaha still produces to this day, and they actually are really great beginner's guitars. But in more recent years, they've made a very conscious effort to increase the availability of higher quality Pacificas and push the line somewhere where it has never actually really been in the past outside of the custom shop. And that's where the Standard Plus comes into things. So we're going to find out why the Standard Plus is a revamped Pacifica for a whole new generation of guitar players. Before we do that, I want to say a big thank you to my friends over at Yamaha for sponsoring the video and sending me this guitar to check out for this video as well. So again, as I said, the Pacifica was basically known as a beginner's guitar. The 112 was such a popular model, and it still is in the Yamaha catalog. When I started playing guitar in the early 2000s, the 112 was one of the go-to guitars that most guitar players went for. I personally didn't have one as my first guitar, but a lot of my friends did. So I did play a lot of them back in the day as well. And I can still attest to the fact that most of them were pretty good out the box anyway. I've always been a fan of that as a very strong beginner's guitar. But fast forward to 2024, and Yamaha decided to launch the Standard Plus and the professional versions of the Pacifica. Now, the idea behind this is this takes the Pacifica name into a whole new generation and a whole new level of playability. Over the years, Yamaha have actually expanded that Pacifica range. So you've got the 112, which is from the 100 series, but there's also a bunch of other series, the 200, 300, 400, all the way up to the 600 series. The 600 series are very good guitars, but they retail around about the £600 to £700 mark for the most part. So you kind of know what you're getting there. It's a good mid-price guitar. Maybe if you're someone who's looking for your first serious guitar, that's a great ballpark to start in. But that was kind of where it ended. Unless you go custom shop, that was kind of the ceiling for the Pacifica name. So in 2024, they brought out the Standard Plus and the professional range, which added an extra 2 tiers onto the Pacifica family. So the Standard that I'm holding in my hands here, these retail for around about £1,000 in the UK, and then you've got the higher end professional models as well, which are very similar to these, but just with a couple of extra spec upgrades, and you can pick those up for usually about £1,600 to £1,700. So they are a bit more of an investment, but they are a professional guitar as the name implies, so you are getting a lot of guitar for your money there. With Yamaha being a Japanese company, innovation has always been at the heart of what they do, and even though the Pacifica was a guitar that the guitar community very much embraced as that beginner to mid-tier guitar, over the years, they were quietly working away in the background to refine it and update it to what we have today. And I have to say, I do think Yamaha did an exceptional job bringing the Pacifica up to that next level. So spec-wise, with the Pacifica Standard Plus, Yamaha have used some tried and tested classic specs, but also added some of their own modern flair and innovation to this to make this a very cool modern take on the S-type guitar. Now on the surface you can see this is a HSS style guitar. So we've got an alder body, which again is pretty standard for an S-type guitar. We know what we're getting there. Alder is a great wood for this kind of guitar. We know how it sounds, we know how it feels, and instantly it kind of feels pretty familiar in that sense. The same is true for the maple neck with the rosewood fingerboard. We're instantly in a ballpark that as guitar players we're already familiar with. Now where the fun starts is actually when we dig into the electronics of this guitar. So these pickups are actually not your typical HSS pickups. These are actually pickups called Reflectone pickups, which were designed in partnership with Rupert Neve Designs. Now Rupert Neve being the man and the company that invented the famous Neve mixing consoles. Now, what I will say about these pickups is when I first got this guitar, I was a little bit confused about what the pickups were, purely because they don't sound like, let me just say, a vintage Strat. They don't sound like that. They're actually voiced to be much more full range. So you get this big bloom in the low end and this real kind of fat sound that isn't muddy, but then you also get these real sparkling highs that aren't piercing. They're very hi-fi sounding and very full range. I've never quite heard a pickup like it, and it took me a little while to figure out what I wanted from that, because I'm so attuned to guitars sounding a certain way. I'm used to my S-type guitars sounding a bit more vintage. So when I first started playing this, it confused me a little bit. But the more I dug into it, the more I actually grew to really love those pickups and actually found so many different things in those pickups that I've never actually found in any other guitar with this pickup configuration. We have a single volume and a single tone. The tone has a push-pull, which splits the bridge humbucker into single coil mode. And in true S-type guitar fashion, we've got a 5-way pickup selector here, which gives us all of the usual things. So we've got the bridge and middle on its own, middle and neck on its own. And obviously when we're in the coil split position, this functions as a single coil, so you get a single coil bridge and a single coil bridge and middle. We also got a non-locking tremolo in this. Yamaha have produced some Floyd Rose variations on the Pacifica over the years, but on this one they've opted for the non-locking tremolo. On the back, we've got a nice recessed neck heel. So this is very comfortable for when you're playing up the neck. As you can see, there's a real bold carve on this. So it's very ergonomic on the hand. So even when you're playing all the way up the neck, there's not much mass here, so it doesn't feel like the neck heel is kind of filling your hand up, which is a very nice modern feeling feature. And some of the comfort cuts have been kind of over-enhanced a little bit compared to a typical S-type, which is quite nice because again, you get that extra ergonomic feel. On the neck, we've got a rosewood fingerboard, which is a weird radius size. It's quoted online as being 350 millimeters, which if you do the conversion is actually like 13.8-inch radius, which is quite strange. The professional version of this has a compound radius, which goes 10 to 14. But this one, they've opted for a 13.8-inch radius, which is pretty flat and pretty modern feeling all the way up the neck. It may be a 14, but if you do the direct conversion from the specs online, it lands you at 13.8. Maybe there's a bit of a discrepancy there somewhere. And we do have that classic Pacifica headstock, but with Goto locking tuners, which not only aid your string change speed, but also just help give a little bit more stability and reduce any unwanted friction and winds at the top, especially when using the tremolo system. The frets on this are stainless steel, which is great for a longevity perspective, but they're also a medium size. And that's quite interesting because when we think of modern spec, we always go jumbo or extra jumbo. Yamaha have actually opted for a slightly more old school feeling fret size, but out of a very modern material. So you get that best of both worlds thing again. You get that slightly vintage feel, but with the more modern flattened neck and the fact that stainless steel frets are pretty hard to wear out. So whatever you're using this thing for, you're going to be pretty hard done by to wear through those. And that leads me to my final question of this video, which is, who is this aimed at? Who are Yamaha targeting with the Pacifica Standard Plus and Professional? Because we think of the Pacifica, as I've said a bunch of times, as being a beginner guitar, even though they have introduced the 200 to the 600 series guitars, which were higher spec, higher quality, and fantastic mid-priced instruments. The Pacifica never quite made it into the working musician or the professional musician's hands. And that is where this really comes in. Now, the Standard Plus, I've had this for a couple of months and I've taken this on tour quite a bit to road test it. And it's actually proved to be a really good gigging guitar because those pickups being very wide ranging actually allow me to cover a bunch of different sounds that other HSS guitars just can't quite do, because with the tone control up full, I can still get all those super hi-fi sounds. And if I want to make it a bit more vintage, I find I can just roll the tone back like 25-30%, and it just takes that high-end sheen away. And then I'm kind of in like a more of a vintage S-type ballpark. So it's kind of the best of both worlds in that sense. I really do think when Yamaha were designing this guitar and the professional version, the guys they were going after are the working and professional musicians. Because what these guitars offer you is a guitar that can do a load of different things. Because with those Rupert Neve pickups, you have this array of these hi-fi full range tones, which is fantastic. If you're a studio guy especially, you can get some amazing sounds out of this. Almost sounds a bit DI in places where you get that super crystal clean, tight responsive thing. And then if you just roll the tone control back a bit, you can get into a bit more vintage territory as well, which is what I use this for live. It's a great versatile live guitar because it can do so many different things as well. So I think they've made a real conscious effort here to move the Pacifica name. It still lives in the beginner world, but also to move it into the hands of players who may not consider the Pacifica as a professional guitar. But now, thanks to the Standard Plus and the professional versions, you can. And as I said, these retail in the UK for just under or around £1,000, depending on where you get it. And the professional one is going to set you back about £600-700 more. The difference being the professional one is made in Japan, and you know, there's some slightly higher quality things, higher quality specs, but the bones of the guitar is pretty much the same. You can look at the Revstar for a very similar comparison. You've got the standard and professional Revstars. The standards are perfect in every way for any application you need, same as this. But then if you really want to splurge and you want that little bit extra, you've got the professional line there ready to take you to that next level. So I think Yamaha have done an exceptional job here of actually bringing the Pacifica name to a whole new level of players and actually revitalizing the Pacifica name for a new generation, because I knew of the Pacifica 20 plus years ago when I started playing guitar, and the fact that they're still developing this and they're still refining it in 2025 is fantastic. So once again, a big thanks to my friends over at Yamaha for sending this thing over to me to check out. Let me know down below in the comments if you've tried one of these yourself, what your thoughts and opinions are. I'd love to hear from some of you guys who've played or even own one of these in your own collection. Thank you so much for watching as always. I'll see you very soon.